screen starts glowing, and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Goods, a film podcast. Here on episode 219, this is Brian speaking to you over the airwaves, and I've got a couple friends with me. Dan, are you here?
Hey, Brian, I'm here.
Cool. Now, this is a theme month. We'll talk the specifics of it. But last time we met, and I was the host, we had a guest. We had Teddy and Matt from the Buzzed on Movies podcast, and we had so much fun, I thought I'd have a guest this time, too. And so we have brought Gavin back.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Welcome, Gavin. Long-time listeners will note that Gavin has joined us several times before, often on the topic of his expertise, which, among other things, is religious scholarship, historic texts of faith. But we're talking something different today. A subject we haven't covered before, because what will we be talking about, Gavin?
Your theme month is what? Size changes? I'm not entirely clear on the theme.
Yeah, so we haven't actually rolled any of the episodes out to the feed yet as we're sitting here to record, so I don't blame you for not knowing all the details.
These three movies have a few things in common. I suppose the most important thing is that they all feature the matinee actor Kerwin Mathews.
Yes.
And they all have stop motion special effects.
Right, but you hit the nail on the head with the size changing, because this is Maxi month, mini month. It's all about things that are bigger or smaller than we're used to. Something that exists in the real world at a standard size that we're used to, and then in the movie is depicted via movie magic at a different scale.
And it doesn't need to actually change size during the movie. It could just be something that in the film's world is bigger or smaller than we would expect that thing to be. And I'm going to have to think about whether all three of these have things changing sizes in the midst of the movies. At least two of them do.
I think all three.
The middle one, the characters don't actually change size. It's all relative.
Yeah, I was going to ask, in Gulliver, do they change sizes, or is his relative size just change?
Oh, good point. I guess you're right. I hadn't thought about that. But one of the three films we're going to be talking about today, one that was actually a day one pick for me, is Jack the Giant Killer from 1962. And we'll get into why and what that is, because it's kind of like the furthest down the rabbit hole of these three. But to get to there, we got to hit some stepping stones first. And when I was like logging these things on Letterboxd or doing little capsule reviews, what should cross my feed but, oh, Gavin likes these movies. And I don't know, I wrote like a blurb about one of these. It may not have even been one of the three that we're talking about today specifically. It might have been Captain Sinbad or something. But Gavin pinged off my review, sent me a message or a reply or something, and we got talking about these Sinbad films and what Sinbad likes, Sinbad spin-offs. I thought it would be a good opportunity here in Mega Mini Month to return to Ray Harryhausen, who was a special effects pioneer, worked with stop motion animation, created a lot of famous monsters in the annals of film history. And so I got to talk with Gavin about the planning for this episode, and he said, if you're doing anything that's a knockoff of the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, we should just go back and talk the 7th Voyage of Sinbad. And I'm down for that. listeners, you may remember that we have previously talked Ray Harryhausen way back when we did Clash of the Titans, which was kind of the last Harryhausen film. We talked about that it was kind of a relic at that point, which was like 1980 or 81. You know, it was a world post the release of Star Wars when effects were being done in a totally different way. But these effects are cool. I'm glad that we are reconvening to talk Harryhausen. And so, guys, what is your past exposure to 7th Voyage of Sinbad and Ray Harryhausen more broadly?
Well, I wanted to start by asking Gavin, and this could be my memory is fuzzy on this one, but was our Clash of the Titans episode the first one that you listened to, or at least the first one that you reached out to us about with feedback on some of the things that we said, particularly not being fond of the fact that I was kind of cold on Clash of the Titans?
I don't know if that was the first one I listened to. I know I definitely listened to it and it offended me. That's all I remember, to be honest.
Gotcha.
Because Ray Harryhausen is a childhood idol. I grew up on Clash of the Titans and 7th Voyage of Sinbad and Jason the Argonauts in particular. Not all the Sinbad movies. There are 3 of them that Harryhausen worked on. Were released by Columbia. And he did about 15 films in total. I'm trying to remember if any of the others were special to me. Those 5 were special to me. So that's already a third of his output, most of his fantasy films, and less so science fiction films.
Yeah, when I was growing up, my parents would get me these films on VHS at Christmas time, and I got quite a few of them back then. And definitely the ones I really connected with were 7th Voyage of Sinbad. Jason and the Argonauts, I think, is like the high water mark. That's my favorite Harryhausen film. I think it delivers like consistent monster action the whole time and then builds to the big skeleton battle.
I mean, a lot of people think that. I never liked Jason the most. And I think part of the problem is that it's half a story. It like cuts off. It cuts off, I feel like, at the worst possible moment. I guess they're worst moments, I suppose. But the skeleton fight is definitely impressive. And it does one better than something that appears in 7th Voyage. But I have a soft spot for the Sinbad films over Jason. I think I like Clash of the Titans better than Jason as well. But I won't begrudge anyone who likes Jason the Argonauts. I like it a whole lot too.
And then another one I watched a whole lot was Captain Sinbad with a D in the middle, where it's Guy Williams as the star. And I only learned later that that's like a stepchild. It's not, it's a spin-off. It's definitely like an inferior product. It's the Sinbad mockbuster.
How could you not notice? It's not Harryhausen.
I don't know. It's just got a different vibe.
One of the monsters is literally invisible.
Yeah, they pull some punches.
It's an invisible monster, and he fights literally nothing.
Definitely phone some things in. But so in the discussion for the episode today, we were talking, well, which specific movies do we talk? Because we don't want to overwhelm people. We don't want to be overwhelmed ourselves. So there's like a large corpus that we could talk. Another Harryhausen film I watched time and again was Mysterious Island, the Jules Verne story.
Oh, yeah, I did too. I watched that one a lot. Yeah, that was a childhood favorite.
Where it's giant animals on an island. That would definitely fit the bill. And
a crypto sequel to, I mean, I guess it's literally a sequel to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but it's not a sequel to the Disney film.
Right.
Which was also a childhood favorite.
Yeah, different Nemo. So we were powwowing. What do we talk? And we kind of hit on the idea, what if we had as our connecting theme star Kerwin Mathews? Who is this? What did he say when we were talking Harry Hamlin in? Is it Harry Hamlin, the guy in Clash of the Titans? Somebody Hamlin.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's so irrelevant. I think that sounds right, or in the ballpark of being right.
Somebody said generic handsome fella.
I mean, Kerwin Mathews has a rugged good looks. He looks like someone you get to play like Prince Charming in a children's play at a matinee, like a matinee performance of something. I don't know. He just looks like you think hero and you you get this guy
Right.
with extremely wooden acting, but that's not what we came here for.
Right. Which makes it really funny, the ingredients they decided to put together to kind of recapture this bottled magic when they made Jack the Giant Killer, which is they got the hero and the villain and the director, but they didn't get Harryhausen.
No, and I would not blame you if you did not. I did not notice as a child. I don't think I knew the name Harryhausen. Maybe my dad would have said it time and time again, but it didn't really connect. For me, it was just any stop motion animated monster was cool. And the same TV channel, I believe it was TNT, they would show 7th Voyage and Jack pretty much on repeat. Like I never had a VHS of Jack, but I did see it on TV a lot.
That was how I saw it as well. And I thought it was TBS, the Superstation, but you're a little older than me. TNT sounds like it could certainly be where I saw it. Definitely it was television.
Whichever channel is playing Beastmaster on repeat, that's one of those things. It just always seems to be playing.
So the only Harryhausen I watched for the Clash of the Titans episode, which is to say I watched Clash of the Titans, and I also watched what I think was Harryhausen's first major effort. He co-produced it with the guy who did the effects on King Kong, and that was Mighty Joe Young, the ape one. And so a couple things have changed for me since then. I think we did that episode, I want to say 2021, Brian. So it's been 4 years.
Yeah, it was around about Christmas 2021.
So one is that I'm just a little more steeped in adventure film history. I recently watched the silent Thief of Baghdad.
Oh, terrific.
It's outstanding. I really, really loved it.
The Douglas Fairbanks one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that a lot. I've seen a couple other. I also saw it's not exactly the same, but the energy is kind of the same, is the swashbuckling Robin Hood starring Errol Flynn from the, 30s. That's also very terrific. That doesn't have monsters like this, but it has a similar, I would call it the spirit swashbuckling. I don't know specifically what that term means. It probably has a more precise definition, but a sort of classic adventure spirit, like you're kind of reading an adventure novel when you're 8 years old feeling.
I would say it feels like a matinee film. It feels like the type of children's entertainment that you'd watch early morning or early afternoon sometimes.
Right.
The Errol Flynn Robin Hood, I know that at least Zev, who you had in your podcast once, I think it's his favorite film. And I don't know, I wouldn't want to slide it by calling it a matinee. It's not supposed to be an insult. It's just the kind of film it is, as opposed to, I don't know, The Exorcist.
Sure.
It's been a long time since I saw the Errol Flynn Robin Hood. I have seen it. We talked a little bit about it when we covered Court Jester from the 50s, which, is already like almost 20 years later, but was like trafficking in the same tropes. It was like a parody of the Errol Flynn Robin Hood, and it had Basil Rathbone returning in a very similar role.
I think for this particular set of films, the more important film would have been The Other Thief of Baghdad from the 40s.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but I haven't seen it.
It's not a remake of the Fairbanks one at all. Disney's Aladdin is basically a remake of The Thief of Baghdad. It's like the one from 40, I think it's 43.
Oh, I thought that's the one you watched, Dan. You were talking about Disney as well, I think.
Yeah, when I brought up, I mean, there's probably DNA shared across all of them, but I haven't seen the 40, I think it's 1940, The Other Thief of Baghdad.
Just a second, I have the DVD right here. I have both thieves.
Oh, very cool.
Sitting in my closet.
I think it was even on the pod, I shouted out that there's just so much in Disney's Aladdin that's pulled from the Douglas Fairbanks Thief of Baghdad.
You're correct about the date. It's 1940. Yeah, even more so than the Fairbanks. I guess the thing about any film that draws upon the Arabian Nights, which would include even like the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, but Disney's Aladdin. And I just watched yesterday a film called The Thief and the Cobbler, all of which are drawing from kind of a stock motifs. The two of those that are closest are Thief of Baghdad and Disney's Aladdin. They are so close. They almost feel like the same film. That's exaggerating just a little bit, but there's stuff. It's a medley of all the different motifs from several of the famous stories from the Nights. which I'll probably discourse on at length and shortly.
Yeah, I wanted to get your input about that because, of course, that's what we expect from Gavin. We want to know about the books. We want to know about the sacred texts. And in as much as there's opportunity for that here, I want to give you that opportunity. So I did want to know if you had input on 1001 Arabian Nights, as well as anything in a bit about Cornish mythology. I don't know if you got any tidbits on that, but
I do, yeah, because of course I did research for all three of these. No, for two of them.
in my, very superficial amount of research this week, I was finding blue Wikipedia links to these things mentioned in this film, things like Cormoran the Giant. And the impression that I got is whoever put this movie together knew some things about Cornish mythology, kind of the way that the people who put Max Magician together knew some things about Irish mythology. They were name dropping. They were talking the Dagda.
Should I start then?
Yeah, go ahead with 1001 Nights, because I think we'll lead with Sinbad.
I mean, you said that this is the first time I'm not talking about religious topic, and I want to push back against that a little bit because I mean the 1001 Nights is not a sacred text for anyone, but it talks an awful lot about religion and has ties to other religions. Of course, the main one will be Greek mythology, which is Homer is almost a religious text. Some would consider a religious text. So the seventh voyage of Sinbad. So you have Sinbad the sailor, who is not part of the original cycle of Nights. Arabian Nights, it's like a text that has no defined form. It was a collection of stories that could be expanded. It was kind of at will. It's not considered a great literary text in the Middle East, or it wasn't until Europeans discovered it. And it was a Frenchman named Antoine Galland that translated it into French from, I believe, a Syrian manuscript. And it became kind of a European classic. It was a much bigger deal in Europe than it ever was in the Middle East, until I guess nowadays it's popular all around the world because of this moment in the 18th century. And when Galland was translating his manuscript, he realized that he didn't have 1001 Nights, and this excessive literalism bothered him. So he went looking for other stories. And two of the most famous stories are not actually in Arabic manuscripts, and that includes Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves and the story of Aladdin. I've read the entire thing, an entire version of the Nights that was translated from an important manuscript. I think it's a manuscript called Calcutta 2. It was the one that was translated by Richard Burton in the 19th century as kind of the standard English version. This is Richard Burton before he was married to Elizabeth Taylor, about 80 years before he was married to Elizabeth Taylor. So it's a retranslation of his manuscripts. And Aladdin is in there, but as an appendix, and it's translated from the French. So it feels very distinct. Sinbad at least appears in Arabic, but it's not part of the original cycle. So I think in the Norton edition, like the Norton translation of the Arabian Nights, an Arabic scholar attempted to find like the central text, like the most important, or the ones that recur, the ones that are probably part of the original cycle. And he published this text, and people were upset because it didn't include any of the stories they recognized. So he had to publish volume 2 that had Sinbad, Aladdin, and Ali Baba. And he was like, there are your stories. It's like the 3 that all Europeans know and Americans, but that are not, they're orphan stories, or they're bastards. The other thing is that like, most people don't actually know the plots of these stories. They know the motifs in them. And I had to familiarize myself with the actual 7 voyages, because the movie that we're about to discuss is based on the voyages of Sinbad, but not the 7th one. It incorporates elements from voyages 2 and 5, in which Sinbad encounters a ruch, which is a gigantic bird. They call it a roc in the movie, which is just another word, it's the same word. And then in voyage 3, he encounters a man-eating giant, and it's the same story as the Cyclops in the Odyssey, which is found all over the world. It's a recurring motif in folklore. End of discourse. Should we wait on Cornwall?
Yeah, let's circle back to Cornwall.
Okay.
So, Gavin, one thing I wanted to ask about see where this fit into all of it is a film historian did a commentary track on the Thief of Baghdad from the 20s, which I listened to. And it was very informative. And one of the things that it said is that in the 20s, in sort of like rich socialite circles of people who wanted to kind of be educated and, you know, kind of up on what the current events were and all that, it became really trendy to read and like kind of talk about how it reflected all these mythologies and stories that we have. The 1001 Nights, particularly after an English translation came out in the 20s that was very popular. And so I looked it up, and there was a 4-volume translation that released in 1923. The translator's apparently somebody named Edward Powys Mathers, based off of a French one, I think, the J.C. Mardras. So it might have been from French to English rather than directly from anything else. But I was wondering if you knew anything else about that or if you had heard of that one, because I thought that was pretty interesting, that like what we think of as this ancient story was really trendy in the 20s.
I believe I have heard of that one. As I remember when I was wanting to read the Nights, I was kind of confused about which translation I should consult. And if it was translated from the French, I would explain why I didn't read it, because I don't want something translated from a translation. Burton's is extremely hard to read, both because he writes in kind of a pseudo King James English, and also many printed versions of it do not have indents ever. So reading a book without paragraphs is a trial. Also, there's a question about how original Burton's translation is, or accusations that he plagiarized an earlier 19th century translation. But I believe like in the 18th and 19th century, there are also like Orientalist trends, basically, as reading the Nights or imitating, customs from them. And I guess to go back to the 20s, I recall there's an episode of Downton Abbey where one of the daughters wants to dress like a Turk. And that's the one that dies later on from pregnancy difficulties. So that's God getting his revenge for that blasphemy. I don't know. It was fashionable at the time.
I remember it was like the episode climaxes with a woman wearing pants, and then people are aghast.
Yes, that's Sybil showing off her pants.
What say we dive into 7th Voyage of Sinbad from 1958, directed by Nathan Juran. I popped this in. Actually, I watched it on Tubi, I think, had, if not all three of these, at least two of them were on Tubi. Good old Tubi.
The people streamer.
But it took me back to watching it on VHS, and this one was more baked into my memory than I even realized. It was like every beat is like, oh yeah, I remember this. And what I really liked is that it's earnest. It's never ironic or winking. It's like they're here to do this. They're here to tell this story, and they're all in.
It could stand to have a little bit more humor. I thought that especially as I was watching the Worlds of Gulliver. The 3 Worlds of Gulliver I thought was pretty funny.
I actually find that tone that you described, Brian, to be consistent kind of across all of this. I guess I just associate the swashbuckling to be very earnest, unflinching in their praise for heroes. There's good guys and there's bad guys. Where this one, maybe what you're describing is it never really feels like it descends into camp or like cheesiness. It's less silly than some of the other ones. It doesn't have stuff that kind of, I guess, borders into comic relief with the silliness. But I definitely see what you're saying on the tone.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of things like the 1998 Antonio Banderas Zorro. And it just as indicative of how the culture and the presentation has changed. And of course, that from a long time ago now in terms of today. But there's just not like punchlines and zingers in these older films, at least in this one.
Right.
There is a misogynistic crack at the beginning about they're really hard on the handmaiden to the princess. And we don't see enough of her to know why she has that reputation. So there's a point where she's put into a jar with like a cobra, and then one of the kings or the caliph, he says, "Oh, I hope the cobra will be okay." And I was like, that seems unwarranted.
I wondered about that too. It's like, why do they hate her so much? But when the film starts out, they're already at sea. So it's Sinbad on a ship, and he's got like his fiancée on board the ship. So the plan is they're sailing towards Baghdad, which is where Sinbad lives. He's from Baghdad. And in the midst of this voyage, while they're still in the open ocean, they come across this island that they didn't know was there, mysterious island. And they go ashore on the island and they run into some fantastic occurrences. So there's a man-eating giant, you said, on the island. And there's also like a wizard guy. A wizard who has a magic genie lamp.
He's clearly bad news because he's bald and he wears black. And he looks and talks completely sus every time, even when they trust him when they shouldn't.
I want to think critically about how bad of a guy Sakura actually is, because, well, I don't know. We'll tally up his deeds at the end. I thought as far as some villains, he's not that villainous, but maybe we got different opinions.
At one point, the filming and tones kill him. That strikes me as pretty villainous.
Yeah, I suppose. But also his name is Sakura, so I was just thinking Japanese cherry blossoms the whole time.
You kind of alluded to this, and we don't need to go too deep into a digression, but I'm a little curious. I was extremely struck, especially during this opening segment, but really throughout a lot of this film, and honestly, the third film that we're going to discuss too, that it reminded me a lot of Homer, of the Odyssey. And so I understand that there's at least some connection between 1001 Nights and the Odyssey. So were the filmmakers kind of doing some invention, or was this really kind of the spirit of this tales it was adapting? Like, what's the connection between Homer, the Odyssey, Greek myth, and 1001 Nights?
Well, I think that would require a dissertation. Like, the main thing is the story of a man-eating giant that captures a bunch of sailors, and they blind it and escape. I've encountered that it's a widespread folktale. I've found in at least a Turkish version in addition to the one in the actual tales of Sinbad. And of course, the Odyssey is the most famous one. And I noticed while rereading the 3rd Voyage of Sinbad, and in the Arabic, it's a giant. It's a black ogre, basically, with 2 eyes, lives in a castle, and it feels up each of the sailors until it finds the fattest one, and then it puts him on a spit, and then it breaks his neck, puts him on a spit, eats him down to the bones, and then falls asleep. It says gurgling like a recently slaughtered sheep. But he has 2 eyes. He has 2 eyes, and yet the drawings show a giant with 1 eye. So they're conflating Homer's Cyclops, they're Polyphemus, with the tail. And some of the other voyages also recall Homer. There's one that's reminiscent of the Lotus Eaters. They encounter these people who are basically stoned all the time. They take this strange drug and they become listless. And some of Odysseus' sailors also become listless. And overtones of Circe as well. I do not know exactly how these came into Arabic in the Middle Ages. I kind of doubt they knew Homer firsthand. And then there's all sorts of speculation about what Homer's sources were, what it means, what the tale means. It's not throwing Greek myth into Sinbad. It was already that had already happened.
I see. Okay.
So the portrayal of the Cyclops itself, like the design is unique, but the story that we see here is very similar to what you would find in the actual tales of Sinbad.
Gotcha.
And even throws rocks at them.
And this Cyclops, perhaps Harryhausen's most iconic monster. Definitely when people like allude to Harryhausen, they're going to point to this Cyclops. If not the skeleton battle, it's the Cyclops.
It's a terrific design. I mean, I love it. It's what I think of when I hear the word Cyclops, even though it's not. He added touches like the satyr legs, the cloven hooves.
Right. It's got goat legs. It's got kind of a rhinoceros horn in the middle of its head. But this is the thing that showed up in Gravity Falls. They did a Harryhausen episode, and the Cyclops is there.
It's like a Japanese oni almost. I think they have horns on their head like that. It's like one of the, the Evas in Neon Genesis Evangelion. They're based off of the oni. And I think one of the most defining things about it is its roar. It's like a cross between an air raid siren and like a goat bleeding. And it's like a horrible sound.
Ah!
I can't. You have to put in like
you gotta mix
MP3
things.
clip. Yeah, make a great ringtone. You would pick up that phone instantly to make it stop.
Do that noise whenever your wife texts you or something like that. If we're gonna do misogyny here.
Yeah, it's in the spirit of the era, the 50s. We're bringing the boomer jokes. So the Cyclops comes out and is battling some of the sailors, and then the wizard comes with his genie lamp and casts a spell that protects the sailors. He like makes a magic wall because there's some dialogue that I guess you can't order the genie to hurt anybody. So it's only spells of defense, which remember this whole time, like Gavin said, this wizard is doing the like Dick Dastardly, like very wicked and insidious and rinsing his hands together. And it's like, I'll cast a protective wall. Like that doesn't seem very evil. This is the introduction to the character. And then they put him on the boat because Sinbad says, let's get out of here. And they kind of load everybody up on the ship and head back the other way. And in this struggle, the wizard drops the genie lamp.
I think you admitted that the Cyclops is chasing Sakura, right? He wants the genie lamp back. That's why he's angry.
Got it. That's important.
It stops attacking them once it finds the lamp that had been accidentally thrown into the water. But it's kind of absurd because, as Sakura mentions, the lamp is useless to the Cyclops because they can't speak. They can only make these guttural goat sounds.
Right, and you need a password to use the lamp. It's password protected.
It reminds me that when the genie goes back into the lamp the first time, it makes like this power off sound. Like, doo! It's like you're signing off of Skype.
The ship is headed back to Baghdad, and immediately Sakura's like, well, let's turn around. I need that genie lamp, so just take me back there. And they're like, no, we got other matters. We got to go home. And so they're home for a little while. And we meet like the folks. We meet Sinbad's like adapted dad, the ruler of Baghdad.
It's a caliph.
Okay, the caliph. So explain what's a caliph?
A caliph is a successor of the Prophet Muhammad. And if it's in Baghdad, you have the Umayyads, or the first like Islamic dynasty, and a century later you have the Abbasids, who ruled from Baghdad from about 750 until 1250 when the Mongols invaded. And so the tales of Sinbad take place during the time of Caliph Harun al-Rashid, who ruled from about 750 to 809. So it's like we're in the 9th century. But he's like the ruler of all Islam. He's like a pope almost. And then you have Catherine Grant as the princess. She's coming with her father. She goes, oh, you shouldn't hate the caliph. He's a nice man. I was like, what an inane thing to say.
And so her father is a sultan. So what does that mean at this time and place?
It means that he's less than a caliph. He's basically a ruler, a local ruler. But his authority would be under that of the caliph, and if he's trying to start a war with Baghdad, he's basically a rebel.
Got it. Right. So this is a marriage that's set up, in the medieval vein of it's an alliance between peoples. Like that's first and foremost what it is. They seem to love each other. They seem to be attracted to each other. But there's the matter of large tracts of land.
I don't know at what point I went to complain about Catherine Grant, but I guess a lot of the acting is pretty spotty in this movie. But she annoys me the most. In the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, the main female lead is Caroline Munro. And she is also not a very good actress, but she has a screen presence that Catherine Grant does not have. And I hate the way she recites lines. She didn't annoy me as much as she did the last time I saw this movie. But I just wish I don't know. I wish they could have cast any other actress in this role. I was shocked by how many screen credits she had. Then I discovered why. It's because she was the wife of Bing Crosby,
Oh wow.
which like threw me for a loop. I hope she can sing better than she can act. Maybe you had a different opinion of her. The kid Genie always annoyed me too, but it's offset by the weird thing they do with his voice.
I think in general, the acting is kind of moot. I think you used that phrase earlier. It's like you don't really expect Oscar material when you're watching this kind of adventure film. Maybe I was just better calibrated to it this time. Maybe my expectations were different because we didn't have. Weren't there like some heavy hitters in the Clash of the Titans?
Burgess Meredith was in there.
They had a couple English actors playing the gods. They were basically cameos.
Olivier, right?
And speaking of Downton Abbey, McGonagall was there.
Yeah. I kind of wasn't expecting too much. And
that's what you got.
I wasn't disappointed, maybe because I wasn't expecting much. You were bad mouthing Kerwin earlier, and he's certainly not taking home trophies on Oscar night, but I was not bothered by him, which again, maybe in expectations matter, but I think I liked him more than Harry Hamlin in Clash of the Titans.
I did grow to appreciate Kerwin over the course of this trilogy that we're covering. I don't know. He's got a charm.
I have no beef with Kerwin. It's just that he's kind of, I don't know. I don't really have anything against him. He doesn't annoy me. I just don't want these people to annoy me. That's all I ask.
Okay.
I think he's great in the role, and I really envy his wardrobe. I really like the vest that he seems to wear the same vest in every film.
Signature vest. But you're saying Catherine Grant gets over the line too annoying for you.
She annoys me. And the actress in Jack the Giant Killer I like better. I like the actress in Gulliver better.
I thought the actress in Gulliver was pretty good. That was definitely the one I'd seen the least. And well, we'll get to Gulliver soon.
And I really liked the villain. What's his name? Like Torrin Thatch. He has a villain name.
Yeah, Torrin Thatcher in 7th Voyage and Jack.
He's a good villain.
Oh, I didn't even place that it was the same actor in both of them. Oh my gosh. The villain's the same in both of them?
Well, in one, he's totally bald and shaven, and then in the other one, he's wearing like a cloak and like a Fu Manchu.
Right.
He's a Dracula.
Yeah, now I can see it. Why didn't I place that? I don't know. I will say, having watched, it's not apples to apples, but having watched Errol Flynn, it does make you appreciate that like the right sort of screen presence can elevate it, even if you're not doing like high art acting. Having like charisma and getting the audience to root for you does go a long way in terms of improving the overall charm of a film like this.
Sakura's angle is still that he wants to go back to the island, which is called Colossa, and he keeps needling people. He's in this place full of rich and influential people now. He's like, hey, can you give me a ship? Give me a ship. I want a ship. And they arrange for him to do a magic show. This is the days before TV. It's like, what do you do for entertainment is you got to have YouTube while you eat, and there's no YouTube yet. So you have your visiting sorcerer do a magic show. He ropes in the handmaiden and puts her in the pot with a snake, and she comes out as what do they call them in Dungeons and Dragons? I got to pronounce it right. I think it's a Naga. A
Lamia or a Naga. And Lamia is more Middle Eastern Greek, and Naga is more Indo-Persian. So somewhere in between those is a snake woman with 4 arms.
Yeah, and it's creepy because it has Gumby arms. It's there. I'm used to the armatures having like joints and bones, but this is all squiggly Gumby.
It's a Harryhausen monster you could still see the thumbprints on parts of the tail. And I think that's kind of cool. It's like the tactileness, that this is a clay thing that someone had to manipulate little by little. It's also the weirdest part of the film. I'm not quite sure what's actually happening and why the maidservant wants to become a snake lady.
Yeah, it has a weird energy. I don't know. This bit, it's like, what does this mean? What's happening here?
And the weird music. Well, like Bernard Herrmann did the music. Which, number one, that's really cool. And his theme song really puts me in the mood to watch this film. It's like the theme song at the beginning where you see like this mock tapestry is very rousing. And then the music during the snake scene is also was kind of disturbing. It's like alluring, and
Yeah,
then you have
there's like a sexual charge to it in a strange way.
yes, it did stir something in me as a child, which is maybe I shouldn't have admitted that, but it's like I don't know. It made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I feel what you're saying.
I'm glad you mentioned the score. I was going to bring it up at some point. Two of these movies have scores by Bernard Herrmann. Two of these movies have effects by Ray Harryhausen. They are, in my opinion, the better two movies, almost explicitly because of those things. Herman, of course, is it Herman or Herman? I don't actually know. I've only read it before, but he is one of cinema's great composers. And right around this time, he was doing his all-time masterpieces with Hitchcock.
Psycho and Vertigo.
Yeah, Vertigo is 58, right? Psycho is 60.
He also did a lot of music for the Twilight Zone.
I'm completely with you on the score elevating the movie, Gavin. That I really felt pumped and like, oh, this is like it got me in the mood for an adventure film. Excellent score, I thought.
Well, the magic show on its own isn't enough to motivate the sharks, the angel investors, to fund this sea voyage back to Colossa. And so the wizard, Sakura, strong arms them a little more. He casts a spell on the princess to shrink her. Guys, we got some shrinking. It's downplayed in this one, I feel. Well, no, I guess for a lot of the movie she stays small.
Yeah.
It's plot critical. He has to protect the tiny princess, and she helps him.
It's plot critical, but it's not central the way it is for Gulliver. So this would have been like, okay, I can see why you picked it if it had been by itself, but it wouldn't have been like a slam dunk pick for this theme month, Brian. But I think in conjunction with the other ones, it's fine.
I think that's crazy talk. Well, anyway, you have both tiny people and giants in this.
I guess that's true.
And one of those tiny people becomes tiny over the course of the film.
It is plot critical, that's for sure. So I think you're right.
Yeah, so it works, and I think the other two are also fit the bill. So I'm glad that we are covering what we're covering. The way that he shrinks the princess, he like sneaks a cursed candle into her room, and it's almost like he has plausible deniability. Like nobody ever, I feel like I watched it and nobody was ever like, Sakura, you shrank the princess.
I think that's a huge weakness in the plot because, I mean, they discover that the princess has been shrunk, and then Sinbad is like, who could help us? Maybe it's Sakura could help us. I was like, it doesn't occur to you that Sakura did this? Like, he just turned a woman into a snake the previous night.
Yeah, isn't anything suspicious here? They're like, oh, geez. Well, Sakura, you know how to deal with shrunken people.
We're going to go back to Downton Abbey again. It's like there's chaos downstairs and no one suspects Thomas. It's just, they have to start a new independent investigation. It's absurd. I mean, the plot needs to happen. So I'm glad that they didn't spend too much time wondering about it. So it struck me as funny.
Yeah, because his solution is, well, I have just the thing for unshrinking people, but it requires rock eggshell. So, and the place we could get rock eggshell is on my home island.
And that also does not set off alarm bells immediately.
Kind of a dingus, yeah.
But, I mean, he does help them build, like, a ballista to battle monsters and things. So,
with a single arrow.
Yeah, it would be good to bring extra.
Chekhov's giant crossbow.
So they sail back the other way. They're going back to the island, and that's where, like, 2/3 of the movie is back on this island again. But I guess, there is some business on the way there. There's, like, a run-in with sirens. There's a mutinous faction.
Yeah, this is the worst part of the film, in my opinion. The mutiny, first of all, Sinbad needs to recruit people to come with him. And a lot of people are afraid to go to the island with the man-eating giant. And so naturally he picks criminals. People are condemned to die, and he thinks these people will be good to have as my crewmates. And you have the mutiny, which is not much fun because it's normal people throwing, I guess, the 50s punches with, they chop a watermelon in half. And then they get captured. It's the business of the sirens, which you cannot see I mean, what's the fun of having these shrieking demons if you can't really see them?
Right. It's a lot of screaming. It's a lot of wind blowing.
You see water coming up on deck, and it's exactly the amount of water that would come out of a bucket that's being thrown from just off screen. And it's like, I mean, at no point in this film does it feel seamless. It's like you could tell it's not fooling anyone when you go back and forth between shots of the Harryhausen monsters and the actors pretending, to react to it. In the case of the snake woman, you have shots of the woman who has been dyed blue, and it doesn't look entirely convincing, even when you're young. But it's at the worst there because there's no monster to set it off or to distract you from the other rickety special effects.
Yeah, and it's quite episodic. I felt there. It's you run into one thing, you deal with that thing, you move on to the next thing, you deal with that, and it does. Now that you're talking that it's tied to the Odyssey, I do feel some of that in the structure. It's like trials and labors.
The episodic structure didn't stick out to me quite as much in the first one, which, just cards on the table, I thought was the best of the three that we watched overall. I guess just because it was kind of unified around the trying to save the tiny person, and like a couple of elements got mixed in between the different episodes. It felt a little more tied together for me. The Gulliver's one that we're going to talk about, it felt like it could have been 2 or 3 different movies, and like I wouldn't have noticed, To some extent, any film that's like an adventure film is going to be episodic because it's like, here's an adventure. How will our hero survive? Oh, our hero survived. Oh no, our hero's in danger again. How will he survive? And then, repeat.
Yeah, that's fair enough. On the island, it's kind of several things are going on at once, but they definitely encounter a rock, which is a big bird, a Harryhausen monster, and how they meet it first is they find an egg, and the crew is, they're starving after a long voyage.
They had the run-in with the Cyclops first. The first thing they get back, they split into factions. They have a faction on the beach, which is supposed to take care of the giant crossbow in case a monster comes running out. And then they go to the interior of the island, and Sakura, for some reason, tells them they'll split into 2 groups in case one of them gets captured by the Cyclops and the other can come rescue them. Sakura's group, for some reason, he leaves them hanging around next to like a rivulet that's actually wine. And he says, we're going to stay here and rest for the night. They barely walked like 2 miles. And then the other people, they find the Cyclops habitation, and they all walk into the room full of treasure and try to steal the treasure. And of course, the resident comes back, like the Cyclops takes off the roof, and then he puts them in a cage. And that's when you have Sakura come by them, and he ignores the people in the cage so he can get the lamp back. And that's, I think, that's one of the first signs that he's not entirely a good person, at least from Sinbad, who doesn't suspect him in tricking the princess. And this whole episode mirrors the Odyssey, more or less. The Cyclops doesn't talk, but he does put a guy on a spit. And he licks his lips, and that's one of my favorite things. The whole sequence was my favorite part of the film when I was a kid. You see a whole lot of the Cyclops. You have him chasing after some of the drunken sailors. He uproots a tree, and he kills several people with the tree. And then eventually Sinbad escapes with the help of the princess and blinds him and forces him off the side of the cliff. And then you have no more Cyclops. But it's a great sequence.
Yeah. And anytime the monsters are interacting with people, I think is done pretty well. It may not be seamless, and it's different effectiveness at different points, but just that they were able to pull this off. I mean, this was Harryhausen's special thing, is the grappling. Like, I was also thinking another one is Valley of Gwangi or Gwangi.
Oh yeah, the Valley of Gwangi. Yes, another childhood favorite. That's hitting them all. Yeah.
And so that's the one with, if you ever see clips of cowboys and dinosaurs, that's Valley of Gwangi. And what's kind of cool there is that they'll throw lassos around the monsters, and then they had to get like the line of sight right, but with a rope. So it's like it needs to be, pointing out of the actor's hands and then pointing to the monster, and that needs to be like a consistent line. And I thought that was a good trick.
I always love it when a monster picks up a character and then Harryhausen needs to make a whole puppet like a whole claymated puppet of the monster holding a likeness of Kerwin Mathews.
Yeah, that always gets a little silly when it's the flailing clay person.
I mean, it's silly, but I really like it. What I noticed is when I watched Mighty Joe Young, which does the same thing, but they look a lot more lifelike in those films. And I guess, I mean, I don't know if it'd be improved if it looked more lifelike here, but that was one of my favorite tricks, and it completely fooled me as a dumb kid. I never thought for a minute that wasn't Kerwin Mathews in the Cyclops' hands.
But somewhere in the midst of these struggles, they also encounter the rook, this big bird. And first, they crack open an egg to have a giant omelet, and a baby rock comes out. And they kill it easily enough. You know, it's like the baby's about the size of a guy, and they're, you know, a couple men working together. It's like the dumb debate on the internet about 100 men versus a gorilla. You could take down a gorilla, enough people working together. I mean, you just could. But of course, you mess with a baby animal, you get the confrontation with the mother animal, and the big rock comes.
This comes directly from the Arabic text in the 5th Voyage. Sinbad's already had an encounter with a rook. With this one, they find a baby rook and they kill it and eat it. And Sinbad goes, "You shouldn't have done that." And then they get devastated by the mother, which this is the rook. It's always described as a bird that's big enough to pick up an elephant in its claws. And it feeds like its chicks, elephants, and giant like serpents. The one here, it's different. It has two heads for some reason, which, I mean, why not? It's very uncanny. It's creepy looking.
There's some changing of hands of the genie lamp, and eventually Sinbad gets it. And then, you know, there's discussion because you need this passcode for the lamp. So how are we going to wield it? It's good that we have it, but we can't use it until we know the special genie instructions. And so they send the shrunken princess down into the lamp to talk to the genie.
I love the way she slides into it. That must have been a fun set, to be honest.
Yeah, I like it too. I was thinking of I Dream of Jeannie. It's kind of like a Discovery Zone or something, or a Chuck E. Cheese with the tunnel slide. And the genie lamp has like a poem scrawled on the wall, which is a way to set the genie free, because like Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin, that's what the genie wants. I'll grant your wish, but if I had a wish, I would wish to be free.
Well, the genie doesn't wish limit them.
I did notice that.
They can invoke the genie whenever they want. Yeah, it just needs to be defensive. Although when Sinbad asks for the genie's help, he goes, "Meet me at the bottom of the hill," and then vanishes. And I thought, that's not very helpful.
I did notice they also, I can't remember if it was just this first one or third or both, but they called the genie slave, which it's kind of obvious once you say, yeah, he's got to do whatever the master says. But like, that's not how it's described in the Aladdin stories, like Disney's, for example, that if they use the word slave, it's like offhandedly. I guess Jafar calls the genie slave, maybe. But he kind of does have to do, especially if it's unlimited wishes. It is kind of slave-like, the relationship.
I mean, if you're not free, what are you?
I guess so, yeah. In bondage.
Let's break several child labor laws as well. The genie's a little kid with a distorted voice. I mean, both him and Catherine Grant have distorted voices. She, because she's small. And him, I guess, because he's a genie.
These movies did a lot of this voice distortion, either for something that was big or small or ethereal in some way, which I always liked. It was like a little bit of sound design to kind of increase the cinematic quality of the adventure.
This is kind of weird. I don't know. I remembered the genie being less white, more, I don't know, more ethnic, but he's very, very white. He's a little white boy. Everybody's white.
Everyone's white. So at least it's not, you can't accuse us of brown face.
It's consistent. Yeah.
It's whitewashing, but it's not brown face. So
That's right.
Makes it morally superior to the other films in the same era. I think Harufa, is he slightly ethnic? That's the one that Sakura kills This, by the way, Sakura's misdeeds include murder, like straight up murder. As he runs a spear through him, and you don't see the hole, but you do see blood.
Gotcha. They do go and they confront Sakura at this fortress, this like central structure on the island.
It's so cool. I love the laboratory fortress. And he has a pet dragon. And how cool is that? Like the flamethrower breath. Second favorite part of the film, I guess, is when they go to the lab, restore the princess.
Oh, that's right. They got to get the princess unshrunk. So that's why they go to his laboratory. They've got the rock eggshell. So cast the spell to restore the princess. And they run into this dragon that he's got as like a guard dog. I read that the armatures inside the stop motion characters got reused a few times. So like the Cyclops had already been made for the movie. It's like 20 million miles to Earth. There's
Yes.
an alien giant.
The Ymir, yeah, he looks. I mean, he looks vaguely like the Cyclops, but he looks a lot more like the Kraken from Clash of the Titans.
Oh, true.
And he gets progressively bigger as the film goes on. But you also, in the notes, you said that the dragon is a beast from 20,000. Shoot,
Fathoms.
the beast from 20,000 fathoms. Thank you. And that yeah, that's correct. It's basically the same monster, but it's in color this time, and it breathes fire. And the beast is already a pretty great movie monster, so I don't mind that that he reused it.
One thing that bothered me, I guess maybe I'm jumping ahead here, maybe not, because I don't think we've seen this yet, but there's like a whole thing where they defeat the Cyclops. Like, yeah, we did it. And then all of a sudden there's another Cyclops. I mean, I guess it's like a species, so there'd be more than one of them.
Yes.
But it felt cheap to have like a whole defeat of one, and then we get another one.
That surprised me this time too.
Sakura does say, don't rejoice yet. There are other Cyclops in the island. I mean, that's also the case in the Odyssey. They only meet one, but they know that there are others because he calls out to them as nobody's blind to me. And the Sinbad story that I just read, when they blind the giant, they thought, okay, we're good to go. And they get on the raft and the giant just calls out and his friends come running to throw rocks at them. And I guess there is a primitive Cyclops society.
Still, from a dramaturgical perspective, when you defeat a creature, you overcome an obstacle, it has less impact if that same one comes back again.
Well, you know what? I don't care because you see it fight the dragon.
That's
right.
true.
That's what we're really here for, is the Cyclops to fight the dragon. Before that happens, they get the princess back to size, and then the wizard's like, okay, now give me the genie lamp. And Sinbad says no.
No. And so he sticks a skeleton on them.
Right, so we fight with one of these skeletons, and presaging that later there would be more skeletons, because what's better than one is many. But these are cool. I love to see the fighting skeletons.
Herman's score also does a lot of work. Like the music has like bones rattling while he's fighting the skeleton. And that really kind of brings the scene to life. I don't prefer it to the Jason one, but it's a nice taste of what comes in the Jason one.
Yeah.
Also in the Jason one, you don't clearly defeat the skeletons. He jumps off a cliff and they fall off with him. In this one, the skeleton is clearly defeated.
Sinbad and the fiance, whose name is Parissa, they go running off through the caves to escape. And as they're going through these tunnels, they find like a pit down to the center of a volcano. So there's lava down there, and there's like a broken bridgeway with, a narrow bridge, and it spans the chasm, except the middle part has fallen away. And it was very similar, I thought, to on the Death Star in Star Wars. There's a place that Luke and Leia wind up where they got to swing across like a little bridge that's not formed.
Yes.
And I thought the way that this was framed was like very, very similar. But now, of course, there's lava down below. And so they got to throw the treasure down there to destroy it and free the spirit of the genie, which was like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The exchange here is hilarious. It says, Sinbad goes, what if we need the lamp? She goes, well, I made a promise. Like, what if it destroys the genie? I was like, well, we made a promise. We've got to do it.
Yeah. just kind of blindly buying in and doing it when it's like the most powerful thing you have. And he didn't hear the promise or the instructions. It's not like, are you extra sure we don't do anything? Like, take him out before we throw it in. We just throw it in.
Yeah, that's the kind of decision you should discuss as a couple. No, just not one of you making that decision. But they do throw it down into the lava, and they don't see the genie for a little while, so they just kind of trust that it worked. And they run out onto the beach, and yeah, Sakura has sicked the dragon on them, and it winds up fighting this other Cyclops that shows up.
He doesn't exactly sick it on her. What happens? They run out of the cave, and there's a Cyclops just randomly standing there, and they run back into the cave. They release the dragon, and then you have like the second best part of the film is the dragon fighting a Cyclops, and that's my childhood in one image.
Yeah, this is great, very iconic.
The only thing I don't like is that the dragon doesn't use his fire breath, and the Cyclops, we see a big Cyclops club earlier, but the Cyclops never uses his club, so he's just wrestling a dragon. He defeats it rather easily, and then Sakura sicks the dragon on them, and Chekhov's giant crossbow comes to the rescue.
That's right. They managed to nail the dragon with the arrow from the big ballista thing, and then the dragon falls over and squashes the wizard.
Yes, that's very convenient that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then it keeps going. It chases them further onto the beach. I kind of like that. It's like, oh, it's not done yet. But then, it has a giant freaking arrow in its chest, so it keels over and dies. Poor thing.
Yeah, I felt bad for the dragon. But the crew gets away. Sinbad and Parissa and everybody who's left that didn't get squashed or eaten. And they sail away and find that on the ship is the genie, he's a real boy now. And he's going to be the cabin boy. He's going to work on the ship. But also, as a nice bonus, he magicked them all the treasure gold before he lost his magics.
I watched this movie with my daughter, and that made her so mad. She thought that he was a thief. It was like, he doesn't have the right to do that. She had offered lots of interesting commentary on the film along the way.
Oh, I'd like to hear more about that. Yes, you watched with your daughter all of these films, right?
Yes, I did, yeah. She tuned out for most of Jack the Giant Killer, but she watched the entirety of the 7th Voyage of Sinbad with me. She was asking me questions about whether a Cyclops is stronger than a dragon, and she got her answer. The dragon is stronger. She supposed that the two-headed rock, one head was male and one was female, and she firmly rejected the idea that it was a female with two heads. And at the end, she summed it up pretty briskly. She goes, well, it looks like the monster's lost.
R.I.P.
Yes, the monsters. Yes, honey, the monster's lost.
There's our episode title, Brian.
I'm trying to remember some of her, because I wrote down all those in my review, most of those, except for how upset she was by the genie stealing the Cyclops' treasure. She was asking me if the bald man was evil, and I had to assure her multiple times, yes, he's evil. So I guess she had some sympathy for Sakura. I mean, he's not pure evil, but he does murder people. He betrays his friend, his alleged friends. He shrinks a princess for selfish reasons.
Yeah. That was my take, was that he was definitely selfish, but it's like he starts out on this island where he seems to live, and he's got his business there of, he's got this genie lamp, which, okay, like you said, maybe not his. Maybe it belongs to the Cyclops.
Maybe it's not his. He stole it from the Cyclops.
But the Cyclops also can't use it, and even whoever does wield the lamp can't use it for offense purposes. It's only a defense tool. So, I don't know.
If I think of other cute things that she said, I'll report them. Right now, I can only remember what I recorded in my review, and I'm a little sad about that I don't have any new stingers for you. So,
yeah, the one that I really wanted to talk about this week was Jack the Giant Killer, but in our discussion of, well, such and such movies have Kerwin Mathews, such and such movies have Sinbad, such and such movies have effects that are actually by Ray Harryhausen. So what do we actually talk about? I remembered, well, there was this other one that I saw at one point, rented from Blockbuster or something, that had Gulliver. And I'm pretty sure it had Harryhausen in it. monsters and things. 100% Gulliver's got big people and small people. And then I looked it up, and it has Kerwin Mathews. Stars Kerwin Mathews as Gulliver. This is the 3 Worlds of Gulliver from 1960. So definitely one I was less steeped in as a child. Had only seen this one once before. What about you guys?
I saw it once before when I was filling in my Harryhausen gaps, and that was about 4 years ago. So that's recent enough that I actually logged my first watch on Letterboxd, and I was watching it for the Harryhausen effects, and there were not very many. So I gave it a mediocre review the first time, and I came back and watched it for, on its own merits and liked it much better this time. That was my experience with it before.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this one, and it also made me realize I've certainly seen some adaptations of the book Gulliver's Travels in my lifetime, but I don't really know the story that well. And I mostly just remember the image of the giant man tied down by the little people, which we do get here. But I second Gavin that the effects here are much more of the green screen and forced perspective variety than of the Harryhausen stop motion, although there's a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah, like even more so than No Mobile. It's like constantly they're doing rear projection or early green screen type stuff. Compositing layers. So Gulliver, the Travels of Gulliver, what is the full title? But it's by Jonathan Swift, and it's pretty old as far as like mainstream Western canon popular novels.
It's early 18th century, and I don't even know if it would qualify as a novel. It has one of those long titles, but I think it's usually just referred to as Gulliver's Travels.
Yes. So I have read that. That is a book that I have read, and it was a while ago. It's a satire by Jonathan Swift.
I read it in college, I believe, in a class in Irish literature, which is kind of strange, but he was an Irish author of English stock. So he's Irish in the same way that Bram Stoker or, Edmund Spenser are Irish. That is, that they physically lived in Ireland. That's what I suppose counts. It's weird. I don't remember the book very well at all. I don't remember plot. I just remember images. It's very much like the 1001 Nights in that way.
Yeah. To me, it's about perspective. It's about other things too. It's got things to say about society, social commentary, some of which comes through in this movie. But what people know about it most widely is, okay, well, that's where he washes up on a beach and there's little people there. Like Lilliput, that's what people know. And if they know more about it, then they might know, oh, then he goes to another place where he's the small one and the people are big. Okay, that's what we get in this movie. We get the place with the small people and we get the place with the big people. But that's just the first half of the book. He keeps going places and it just gets weirder and weirder.
I think the 3rd Voyage was added later. There's something about it. I think it was published in installments. I have to check on that. But I know that the third part is kind of the odd one out because he goes to a bunch of different places, including a floating island called Laputa.
Right. So the third one, I think there's people in the sky.
Yes. So like Castle in the Sky, the Miyazaki film, the floating island there is called Laputa. And I think that's after Gulliver's Travels. And it's very appropriate because he also goes to Japan in that voyage. Like it's the only time he goes to a real world place. And everything else is just made up. It's like in Laputa, they're all interested in sciences and the arts, but they don't have any they don't do practical things with them.
And I think it's there that the Struldbrugs live. I could be mistaken, but the Struldbrugs are people who are immortal, but not forever young. They don't stay young. They just age forever. And so they spend thousands of years in senility.
They're in that part of the book. I'm not sure if they're on Laputa.
Okay.
And then the 4th voyage is with the Wyndhams.
Yes.
The horse people who are intelligent, and then they have like these barbaric ape creatures, which are basically humans, like humans and horses are reversed.
The great thing about this book and we get it in the movie, is the names. The names for everything, it just gets stranger and stranger as you go, and they're always memorable. And some of them, especially once you get to that fourth horse chapter, it's like we're so far removed from what I, as an English speaker, am used to, that it's like I don't even know how to pronounce this. Maybe if I were Welsh, this is maybe an aside. Is Cornwall part of Wales?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's part of the Celtic areas of British Isles.
Okay. Well, I'll have to pull up a map. We'll have to ask Thrash, but
yeah, I want to tread lightly because I don't want to offend Thrash.
yes, Welsh though has some very crazy spellings. Just so many consonants altogether. And so I've always read it as Huinims. And how did you pronounce it? Winhams?
Winhams.
I like that. I could see that. But it's like, it's a lot of H's, a lot of N's, and a lot of M's in this horse word.
I don't think I've ever seen that part adapted to film, but I don't know. I haven't seen very many adaptations of Gulliver's Travels.
That's what I was going to say is, as the book goes, harder and harder to make it a movie. And so you usually get Lilliput. Here we got Lilliput and Brobdingnag, which is the big place.
I don't think the Jack Black Gulliver's Travels, do they make it to Brobdingnag?
I have not seen it, but I'm glad you shouted it out. I saw the poster with him lashed to the beach.
I would like to see Jack Black as a small person, but I guess we're denied that. I'm not going to watch that film unless forced to.
I thought about it. I did remember the Page Master.
Yeah, there's a shout out.
It's one of the little tableaus, but everything in that movie happens so fast. It's like any shout out to a book takes like all of 25 seconds.
So this is kind of out of the blue, since we're talking our touch points for Gulliver's. Gavin, I understand you to be a JRPG enthusiast, or at least appreciator.
Yes, that also dominated my childhood.
Did you ever play the Shining Force games on there? I think they were mostly on Sega platforms.
They were Genesis. Yeah, I had Shining Force 1 and 2, and I played through both of them, but that was a long time ago. I only did one playthrough of each. Is there something Gulliver related?
Well, I didn't have access to too many JRPGs, which in retrospect was a shame because it would have been perfect for my mindset. I think they would have been something I would have spent thousands of hours playing. Like, I didn't really have one until Final Fantasy VII when I was like in 7th or 8th grade. But with one exception, is that I had a Game Gear, which had a Shining Force game, and that led me down the path of wanting to play all the Shining Force games. So the only emulation I ever set up, like very early in middle school, was to get the Shining Force games to work on my computer, the Genesis games. And I played through Shining Force 1 and Shining Force 2, and they completely captured my imagination. And Shining Force 2, like in terms of games that left an impact on me, is near the top of my favorite games ever on that metric. I haven't played it in many, many years, so I have no idea how well it holds up.
You make me want to emulate it right now. Shining Force 2 was loads of fun, but again,
Yeah.
I don't remember anything specifically Gulliver about it.
But yeah, so one scene, and I'm 90% sure it's in Shining Force 2, that captured my imagination a lot was they either get shrunk down or brought to a giant's place and have to battle chessboard characters. And I was like, that's exactly what we get in this movie. So I'm wondering if that incident was, I mean, it's not exactly what we get in this movie, but we have an incident where he's on a chessboard the size of the chessboard pieces. And I'm wondering if the Shining Force 2 creators pulled that from Gulliver's, or if it's just another idea that they stumbled upon.
I feel like that idea isn't so unique that you would need to get that from a 1960 movie.
Right.
Because like you have that in Harry Potter as well, and I kind of
That's
doubt
true.
that.
Yeah.
I kind of doubt that Harry Potter used Gulliver's Travels as a touchstone.
Yeah, we know that Harry Potter was inspired by Troll in 1986. But we've got Kerwin Mathews back in this movie as Gulliver, and he's a doctor, a surgeon, and he's like trying to make a name for himself. I guess he's in like a backwater village or something. I would expect there to be a demand for a doctor. I think of
Right.
doctors as being very in demand, but I guess he's just got these poor parishioners basically that they can't give him much
The
money.
problem is that no one can freaking pay him. It seems like a competent doctor, but no one can give him any money. They pay him in chickens.
And so he's got a friend or something, some business partner that says, "Hey, come away on the ocean and we'll seek our fortune." And his fiance doesn't like that idea. She's like, "I don't need riches. I don't need fame and fortune. I need you, and we can build a life together." But then there's like a weird cut, and I wonder if there was ever a scene in the script at this point, because it's like smash cut to she says she's going to leave him, and then suddenly we're on the ship. So, okay, well, I guess he decided to sail away, but then also she has stowed away on the boat. So she's there. I guess she was bluffing. She didn't leave. She's on the boat.
I was a little confused by this too. You're not the only one, Brian. I didn't quite understand their relationship. It got to the point where I was like, he needs to save and impress her and all that jazz. That's as much as I need.
It didn't bother me as so much as that we never see the captain or any of the crew again. Gulliver is thrown overboard during a storm, and he runs into Elizabeth again, but he never sees any of the other people again. So it makes you wonder if did they die? That bothered me more than the kind of the slapdash storytelling to get us to the good stuff. I don't really mind that because I don't really care about the inner workings of this relationship in a film called Gulliver's, like Three Worlds of Gulliver. I guess that's World One.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they washed up in Wynnum Land, and we just didn't see that, or they went to Oz or Narnia. But where Gulliver ends up is Lilliput, and I really liked how each time he arrived at a new place, they shoot it in like completely separate shots. So you've got a shot that just shows the people on the shore and a shot that just shows Gulliver washing up. And then they're like approaching each other and you get like a bit of Kuleshov of, oh, they're the same size. And then they come together and they're not the same size. It's a good trick.
It had me thinking of one that's in the same spirit that I've been seeing recently on social media being posted on film Twitter and Reddit and stuff, which has been posted because the new Naked Gun came out, so people are like revisiting the old parody films. But I think this one's not Naked Gun. I think it's, what was the spy one called?
Oh, Top Secret.
Yes, that one. Yeah. And it's like, it has a composition where I think it's a telephone is in the foreground and people in the background, and then the phone rings. And like our movie brain is like, oh, it's a proper sized phone. It's just close to the camera. But then when he goes to pick it up, I actually think it's a woman who picks it up. It's like an enormous phone that's like bigger than her head and that goes down half her body. It's a very funny shot.
I like that. There was something like that in the Cardboard movie that we watched.
Cardboard. Oh,
The maze. Dave made a maze.
Yeah.
They do a trick like that where it's like a tea party, like a Alice in Wonderland tea party set, and the perspective is all wacky.
Yeah.
But this is Lilliput, where people are small, Gulliver is very large. This episode is the satirical point is kind of that people are petty, I guess. The affairs of state are ultimately petty, and wars are fought over petty things. And that's what we come to find out as we meet these Lilliputians.
Right, we have some that are more sympathetic than others, which I don't recall. Like, I don't recall any of the details of the actual book, except maybe the quarrel over eating the eggs. It's like the Lilliputians are at war with Blefuscu, which we only see briefly once. We have like two lovers, one of whom wants to become prime minister, and the other one has just been exiled.
Right. So there's this couple. The first people that we see on the shore is this young couple of Lilliputians, and their names are Reldresal and Gwendolyn. Really big fan of the name Reldresal. He's the one he's like a young minister in the government, and he's in this kind of farcical competition to become the prime minister of Lilliput. And he's like the open-minded, he's the progressive Lilliputian, and his girlfriend is, yeah, a Blefuscu expat. She's like, she and her dad came from Blefuscu, which is this hated rival of Lilliput, and of course it's across the like little spit of water. It's their rival nation, but I was trying to think of what specifically this was like an analogy for. I was thinking like England and France in the Hundred-Year War or something. Who knows? I'm sure there's countless examples that this could be of neighboring places fight. But they see Gulliver as a potential super weapon because he's this giant. And I like the talk of the scale of things because we covered Them last week, the giant ant movie, and we talked square cubed rule, that as you double the dimensions, the length and the height and the width, you octuple the volume. And so there's like some scholarly discussion of, oh, Gulliver eats the same as 1,782 Lilliputians or something. He's 10 times the height, 10 times the width, 10 times the depth, so he eats 1,000 times the amount. So they at least were conscious of that.
I think of that in terms, I hear people discussing how the 50-foot woman couldn't exist because of some problems with blood flow, or how you can't make mecha in real life because, when you make something that big that's bipedal like us, it would collapse in its own weight. It also reminds me how in medieval times, if you had a dead horse, you would catapult it into the enemy's camp so that would blow up and spread disease. So I always think about that when you bring these discussions in there. Even though like Gulliver is just as normal, he's just as normal size. He's just big to them. The competition for prime minister. Have you guys seen the 20th Century, the movie The 20th Century?
No, I want to though. I heard it's good.
A ridiculous Canadian film. And at the beginning of that, there's a competition for prime minister where they have to do a bunch of bizarre tasks, including signing their name in snow with their urine. And that sounded like something that could have been in Gulliver's Travels. I guess not in this version, but like in the original book, he does put out a fire by peeing on it, and he does something similar in this movie, though more G-rated. It's still pretty gross.
The rival minister is named Flimnap. So, Reldresol v. Flimnap.
Sounds like a chemical compound or something.
And the dad of the Blefuscu girlfriend is played by British actor Peter Bull, who we most recently saw in the 1967 Doolittle. He plays kind of the antagonist in the first half of the film. He's the judge.
Oh, the grumpy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's in Scrooge 1970 also as like one of the alms collectors. He was in Doctor Strangelove as the Russian attaché, the like diplomat guy who shows up at the war room. So he was getting work. So what's going on in Lilliput is they are quarreling. If the war hasn't broken out yet, it's on the verge of breaking out between the neighboring kingdoms. And what they're fighting about is the proper way to eat eggs, or I guess more specifically, break eggs. One side breaks the wide end before they eat them. One side breaks the narrow end first. And it's just a stand-in that people fight about small cultural differences. I did like this time that there's some discussion about, okay, what is the best way out of this situation? And Gulliver's like, oh, well, you could just break the eggs in the middle. They say, that's nonsense. That doesn't work.
A great look of disgust on his face as he does it. It's like, ugh, what is this, you heathen?
There's more discussion than that because they say they're not going to like help Gulliver build his boat and get off the beach unless he wipes out Blefuscu. And so he's like, well, fine. And he schleps across the water dividing them. And the way that he takes Blefuscu off the board is he steals all their ships like toys in a bathtub.
I love that. I love that scene. I mean, it's the only time you see Blefuscu, and they just say, like, what's this guy doing? He's taking our navy. As earlier, they talked about what a great navy Blefuscu has, and you see that they just have 5 ships. 5 empty ships. They just, totes away. So much for Blefuscu.
I like the costume designs too, because Lilliput has basically the same kind of clothes that we saw in Sinbad, where it's like faux Middle Eastern stuff. But then across the way in Blefuscu, they're wearing like, I don't know, like tie hats, like the pointy, tall, like East Asian
Yeah,
trappings.
it seemed they definitely look more Asiatic. I remember my dad was confused when he saw the Lilliputians. He goes, why did they make them Arab? And I thought, well, I never thought about that before. I don't know what the Lilliputians are supposed to look like.
Yeah, it's mostly just that they wanted every place, I think, to look different, and so it's they got the clothes, the different styles of clothes, to kind of visually delineate them.
It was kind of odd for me because we had I watched them in the order we're discussing them, and I just watched the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, and then I got into this, and like it took me a little bit to be like, wait, they don't need to be dressed as if they're like in this similar fake Arabian Oriental style.
But Gulliver comes back with the Blefuscu Navy in tow, and he's like, "Perfect, the war is over." And the king of Lilliput essentially says, "Well, yeah, that's good and all, but like, could you commit genocide for us?" He's like, "I'd sleep a lot better at night if everybody in Blefuscu was dead." Gulliver doesn't like that idea. He's not on board with that. And then he has like a heart to heart with Reldresal, who, remember, he's the open-minded one and like the friendly one. And I liked Reldresal's argument because he says, "Well, Gulliver, you have all the power, and so how about you decide what everyone thinks and does, and then you can just enforce that. You can enforce compliance and make everyone live the same way, and then we'll have peace." And Gulliver doesn't like that either. So ultimately, he sets out again in the boat. He puts out the fire. I think he spits on it or something, and he gets his spit on the queen.
Yes, he outrages the queen who had been defending him. And then she goes, like, have him killed. No, kill him in his sleep, burn it with fire. I can't stand this man anymore. Oh.
If you were a Lilliputian, how would you kill Gulliver? Like, what would be the way to do it? I think it would be tough.
Well, you blind him with burning irons and then push him off a cliff.
There you go. Or poison. I think poison would be good if you could get him asleep and poison him, or just put it in all the food. He's eaten the food of 1,000 people. So he puts out to sea in the like the dinghy that he's got. It's a big ship for the Lilliputians, and he gets in, and it's like a little canoe. And the next place that he winds up, he approaches a beach again, and you see there's people on the shore, and it does the back and forth again.
This is my favorite part of the movie, when he taps the people on the shoulder and realizes that they're dolls.
Yes.
It's kind of creepy, yeah.
And then he's confronted with the doll's owner, who is staring him down. And I think the music does frame it as creepy.
Yeah, there's a Twilight Zone episode like this where like people get drunk and then they wake up in a like ghostly empty town, and then the twist at the end is it's a dollhouse and they're owned by a big alien girl. And so yeah, he runs into this little girl who's 50 feet tall, and she scoops him up. Her name, gotta have a good name in Gulliver. She's Glumdalclitch.
Yeah, that name comes from the text.
I guess there's been a decree, an edict from the king that if you find any small people, gotta bring them to the king. So this is a known issue. And it's a known issue because the girlfriend has washed up here, apparently. So that's a stroke of luck. Elizabeth, Gulliver's fiancée, is already living in the king's dollhouse. And there's discussion for a bit of maybe this is the answer for us. Maybe we should just live in a dollhouse and have all our needs attended to, and you won't have to worry, Gulliver, about attaining social status because all our needs will be met.
They won't have any privacy at night. You have big people like just staring in on them when they're trying to have heart-to-hearts.
What about you guys? Would you live in a zoo if you were offered the opportunity?
Probably not.
Yeah, I would not. I value my freedom to choose how my life goes, my life circumstances.
I think I would absolutely do it. I would live in a zoo. They would. I mean, there'd be all kinds of programs, especially if I was like a rare species that was hard to get. They would, they'd be incentivized to keep me alive. But here, the cardinal sin of Brobdingnag is ignorance, I suppose. They don't believe in science. So here, the culture that all the aesthetics draw on is medieval Europe.
Yes.
It's like princesses and knights and a wizard here. It's like they're eating at medieval times.
I'm not sure that's in the text either. I never got the sense that Brobdingnag and Lilliput were very different culturally, but here, one is in the land of Islam, the other one is in, basically the Dark Ages. Oh, in Christendom, I guess.
And so, yeah, kind of a central conflict of the film is that Gulliver kind of embodies the Enlightenment, like ideals of the Enlightenment, and we see how that kind of clashes with the realities of human nature. It's like this high-mindedness doesn't actually match the way that people act.
This conflict doesn't really come into play until, first of all, he and Elizabeth get married because she turns him down. She's going to hide herself in the closet until they can get married. And then my second favorite part of the movie, we get the Harryhausen special effects. I don't want to skip this part because it's like a horror movie when they're having their honeymoon in the garden, and then he's dragged away by a giant squirrel.
This was very funny because you think of the Harryhausen monsters as being big legendary things, but it really drives home the perspective change because now the dangerous monster is a run-of-the-mill small animal that we would think of as harmless.
It has like a disturbing voice as well. Like it's like a growl. Like it has this weird growl that I don't think I've ever heard a real squirrel make. But it's also like it's like a jump scare, but it's also a comic beat because then it drops a nut on his head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets out of the predicament fairly easily.
She like the big girl drops a pigtail down the hole and he's able to ride it out like a rope. But it highlights that even if Gulliver and Elizabeth were at liberty to travel around, they'd be in danger. So they really got to stick to the dollhouse if they're going to live here. So it really is in this Brobdingnag section that we get the Harryhausen material. So if that's what you came for, you got to wait a little while to witness it.
And then you don't get much of it. You just get the squirrel, and then the climactic fight against a tiny, tiny crocodile.
Right, because the king has like a little menagerie. Remember, he said if you find little things, bring them to the king. So I wonder where these animals came from. Like
that's a good question. It's not resolved. The escape from Lilliput, maybe.
I do want to see a Lilliput person up against a Brobdingnag person because that would be a matter of like what 1,000 thousands or something. The volume difference, it would be extreme.
Well, no, I guess they're maybe they're normal animals or animals from our territories. That I don't know how they got to Brobdingnag, but that's a giant crocodile. I mean, it's not the size of a normal crocodile when it's put up against Gulliver. Between those two, special effects are one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie when we see is he an alchemist, I think? Do they call him an alchemist?
I don't remember if that word gets said, but that's what he is. He's the sorcerer with the little laboratory. Got to have a sorcerer with a laboratory in these movies.
Gulliver, he heals, as he beats the king at chess, and then he heals the queen, and whoever this guy is, the court magician, he doesn't like either of those things. So we got this wonderful scene with him and his daughter Shrike, who we only see her once. And she's just like this evil little witch that dresses in violet and is always wishing the worst on Gulliver. She wants to see him burn. And she reminds me of like a proto Wednesday Addams. And I regret that she's only in this one scene in the movie.
Yeah, she's pretty great. She also seems like the kind of girl that would win a ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Like, yes, but she wouldn't win the prize though. She would be expelled from the factory in some violent manner.
Yeah, she'd be one of the ones horribly maimed, and we just have to take Willy Wonka's word that she survived.
She even gets in a cat fight with Gulliver's owner, I guess.
That was making me laugh this time because her dad, Shrike's dad, the wizard, is like, now go outside and play. And then the next thing you see is they're slamming each other's heads into the ground.
This is also the scene where he drops a cat out the window. Gulliver asks him to get rid of the cat, I think, and he just throws it out the window. And that was so unexpected. This might be, I think I've already said something else is the best scene in the movie.
I watched with my folks and we were all like doing calculations in our head. How far did we think it was to the ground out that window? And we thought probably not very far, but they could have done more to show how far that cat was dropping.
Well, he jumps right back in much later. So the cat is okay. The superstition is true. It landed on its feet, I guess. But I don't know. It's among, I guess, maybe the best scene in this part of the film, absent a Harryhausen animal.
But we get another Harryhausen animal pretty soon because he's got to battle the crocodile. That's the sentence that's passed down for being like insubordinate to the king, being pro-science. He's getting like the Galileo treatment.
Why don't they burn him? This is kind of like, it's like a compromise. They could kill him any way, including like just stepping on him or slapping him down, just anything. And they choose to make him fight one of the pets, the king's pets. Well, I don't know. It's a cool crocodile. The fight's not nearly, I mean, it's a very short fight as well.
Yeah. Well, you always got to have trial by combat. You got to have fighting some beast in an arena. I read your review of Star Wars Episode 2, that one of the highlights, that's the one that has arena combat with beasts.
I do like arena combat. That's also in Captain Sinbad, which we won't discuss. There's a fight in an arena. That's where the invisible monster is. I love that. I love how tacky and low rent it is to have someone fight an invisible monster and you still have spectators. I have spectators coming out to watch something you can't see. That feels, I don't know, very P.T. Barnum. That's not this movie. They get to see the tiny crocodiles. I don't know if I'd turn out to see a tiny crocodile fighting a tiny man.
That's not the kind of blood sport you're into.
I guess, I don't know.
To me, it's like a cockfight or something.
I know. I was imagining like Brian holding up the dollar bills as like they're next to each other.
Or like I've read in Japan, you know, they have like Hercules beetles that fight each other.
Mm.
Is this what inspired Pokemon?
Actually, yes.
Really? I thought it was because of the creator, you know, it was reminiscences about nature, things like that. And that might have been Miyamoto and Zelda.
Yeah, specifically, I mean, it was the creator liked capturing insects as a kid, like exploring caves, like coastal caves and catching bugs and things. But I think definitely like the animal combat is part of it.
Can I apply a brief tangent here?
Please.
I was going to bring it up even before you mentioned Star Wars Episode 2, because your remark about animals fighting in an arena made me think of Star Wars Episode 2. I recently rewatched the prequel trilogy, and I have a new working theory about the prequel trilogy, which are, to be clear, quite bad overall. The last hour of Revenge of the Sith is good, probably like objectively good, but everything else in the prequel trilogy is pretty bad. Anyways, my theory is that like basically up until that last hour of Revenge of the Sith, George Lucas's grand vision is he's going to do like 20 minutes of different old Hollywood genres at a time and string it together. And wouldn't that be really fun? It's like, oh, here we're going to be a silly romantic melodrama for an act. And now we're going to be like an old Harryhausen movie for an act. Now we're going to be a film noir detective for an act. But the problem is he doesn't make it good or fun at all. Like it's a good idea and concept, maybe. And I really think he was trying to like, in the same way that people say, oh, Star Wars and Indiana Jones are like the old pulp comics and TV shows that he used to watch.
But the homages to the old pulp, you know, they aren't the old pulp.
Yeah. I never had detected that as like the main storytelling idea before this watch through, but that really stuck out to me this time. And I wish he had executed it well. And yeah, done it as more as like a spirited homage. The one time that it really gets there is the pod racing. Really feels like a modernization space version of like a Ben-Hur chariot race type thing.
I think Lucas explicitly said that was an homage to Ben-Hur.
Gotcha. Makes sense to me. Yeah.
I don't think you need to speculate there. That's why I think your idea has merit, because I know he deliberately made an homage to an older Hollywood film. And I mean, there's a genre mashup in the second one specifically that you mentioned, the detective story and homages to Blade Runner and, but not an old film, but that's kind of
Right.
it's a similar future, like retro future type stuff.
Definitely.
And yeah, it doesn't. I didn't really want to defend Episode 2 as a good film, exactly. But I hate the fact that it's now considered like the worst of all Star Wars pictures, and that makes no sense to me when you have so many other bad Star Wars films to choose from.
Oh, I think Episode 2 is the worst. But that which one do you have as the worst?
Do you think it's worse than Rise of Skywalker?
Okay, to be fair, I haven't rewatched Rise of Skywalker, but at first blush, yes. I just think Episode 2 is so boring and it's just so anti-good. Like Episode 9 is really stupid, but it's like blockbuster stupid. Episode 2 is just anti-good. It's like it doesn't even get to blockbuster stupid level. I don't know.
So I watched the Industrial Light and Magic documentary on Disney Plus, which exceptional documentary, really, really good documentary. I love seeing that behind the scenes visual effects stuff. And the first season is longer and better and like is all about the making of the like really classic films and more with the practical effects. But that did well enough that they did a shorter batch of new episodes this year that were mostly about making the Star Wars prequels. And I found that very interesting too. One of the things is there was a lot more physical miniature work than I realized in the prequels. Like there was still a lot of stuff that was made and composited and actually put in front of the camera. And just the impression that I got, well, one is that Lucas believed in what he was doing, for better or worse. Like this is still like an auteur project. And I think he just had visuals that he wanted to get down. And it's like, I want to get this thing out of my head and put it on the screen. I think the biggest problem is that the people in the story don't act like people. It's very rare that they exhibit human behaviors.
It's mostly bad acting talent, bad acting direction, and bad script writing and dialogue writing.
Well, I think that the difference between the prequel trilogy and the new trilogy have taught me that it's important to have ideas, even if your ideas are stupid. As given the choice, I think I would rewatch the prequels over the new ones pretty much any day.
I think that's fair. I would say that when you say he had ideas for images, there are certainly a handful of moments where that you see that in the prequels. And like, honestly, even those movies never look terrible. Like if you take screenshots of that movie, be like, that's a cool movie. But a movie that did better in terms of being like, my face kind of melted off from like, here's a bunch of cool images that don't really hold together is Megalopolis from last year. Like if the Star Wars prequels movies had made me felt the way Megalopolis felt, I'd be more on board with them.
Well, speaking of Gulliver.
Yeah, sorry to get us. That tangent ran longer than I intended, but that's okay.
Watching this film, the first time I saw Three Worlds of Gulliver, it was a bit like watching the Star Wars prequels now, seeing the work of someone I admire not really doing their best. I mean, I guess it's not Harryhausen's fault. Do they really need him to do a squirrel and a crocodile? Could they have just gotten like the guys who did Jack the Giant Killer or someone else? It feels like he could have been doing something cooler than a giant squirrel. Maybe it's just me.
This movie certainly doesn't feel as defined by the Harryhausen effects as 7th Voyage or Jason and the Argonauts.
It's not a showcase. I mean, he's just showing up to do a job this time. It's not a Harryhausen movie the way the others are. It's very much a Kerwin Mathews film. He's in it like the whole time, and I actually think he's doing better acting job than the 7th Voyage.
No, I think I agree. I found him charming in this, and it's about his struggle, as I mentioned earlier, to like bring these ideals to bear, these Enlightenment ideals to kind of he has this way that he thinks society ought to operate in a perfect world, and he keeps running up against that people aren't always noble, aren't always altruistic, and just the frustration of that, dealing with these backwards people, whether they're tiny or towering.
I think in the context of the movie, it's like if he learns lessons, it helps him resolve his relationship problems, which is kind of how the movie frames it. It's like, so he learned to be more humble with the Lilliputians, and then I don't know. I guess Elizabeth had to learn something. I'm not quite sure what the lesson was, but that's how it's being framed in the movie. They both have moral lessons, and then they eventually escape from the Brobdingnagians. They don't get any sort of redemption. Neither do the Lilliputians. And then they wash up on the shores of yet another island. You see a monster crawling out of the woods there, but it's just an Englishman, a really ugly, really ugly guy. Speaks. I don't remember if he had a Cockney accent or not, but I imagine him having one. It was just, if I saw this guy on the beach, I think I would run, but they don't.
But the editing of it is the same way it's been the last two times, and so you're wondering, okay, what size is this guy gonna be? And then, oh, he's the same size. He's person sized, and they run up and they're trying to ask him where they are, and then he says they're in England. They did it, which is it's also kind of like a Wizard of Oz thing, of there's no place like home. Gulliver's gone off to see the world, and it's only ever like dangerous and off-putting, and ultimately he should have just stayed home with his girlfriend.
Right. So they run off to their shitty house that they purchased at the beginning that has no interior, is not inhabitable. But they're very happy, and for all we know, the captain and the other sailors are dead. So the end.
They have this discussion on the beach when they wash up, the like final paragraph of the movie. They're like, what have we learned?
Yeah, that's a Wheel of Morality type thing. I can't remember what it was, but it made no sense to me. I was like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, Wheel of Morality. That's a good one with Animaniacs. Yeah, we have to have a lesson to get that educational, informational stamp in the upper corner. He says the evils of Brobdingnag and Lilliput live inside us, but so does the goodness of Glumdalclitch, who's waiting to be born. And like, that's what you want to go out on? I guess they're going to. Are they going to name their daughter Glumdalclitch?
I can't think of how school kids could possibly mock her. Oh.
Gavin, I don't know if you had this experience. I assume culture of naming babies is very different in France than it is in America, but it's now like a whole subculture of picking names and like the philosophy and strategy around naming your babies. And there's like a website called Name Nerds, which is like I don't know, it just has backstories on different names and who are famous people and what's the popularity with all these names and stuff. I mean, it's good information to have if you're thinking of choosing a name, particularly one that might not be the most conventional. Anyways, the names that tend to be popular on like the trending right now are like outright ridiculous names. And so sometimes I'll hear a name and I'll tell my wife, that's a Name Nerd's name right there. And yeah, I think that one would be a Name Nerd's name. If I saw that one, I'd be like, that's not a real name.
Do you have an example?
Oh, I don't know. Man, I should have come up with one.
I don't know if this is really a culture thing. I feel like every couple would have their own routine or just, fight maybe about what a child's name should be.
Right.
It was basically like diplomatic meetings. It was like peace talks, throwing out suggestions until we found one that we both liked.
Gotcha.
Which happened to be two different Greek names. So my children both have Greek names.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The French version, of course.
I haven't had the opportunity to name a child yet, but this discussion makes me think of a YouTube video where a guy who does gaming content played a Barbie game from the 90s that has voice acting in it, like the Barbie voice actor reads all the text in the game, and you can pick your name that she calls you by. And there's a list of like 500 names you can pick from. And there's a name on the list that is Chaley. And there's like 12 different spellings of Chaley in this list.
Chaley.
So it's like Chayleigh. That's one Chaley.
My brother Will found this YouTube channel and or website where this woman sings a happy birthday song. Now, I don't think it's the famous happy birthday song. I think it's her own version. Not too different. Same general spirit as Happy Birthday, the one that we know, but has done it for like 30,000 different names, like just records herself singing it. So the idea is like, no matter what your name is, you can find somebody singing a happy birthday specific version song for you that you can stream online. The reason I bring it up is because our friend who appeared on the podcast once named Rhiannoch, we were looking to see if she had one, but Rhiannoch was too far even for this website. We didn't have a video for her.
There's no Bort license plate for Rhiannoch.
Apparently. Check out part 2 of our conversation where we discuss Jack the Giant Killer. Coming soon.